Listen, all I know is my mans hits me up like, let's hit this lil Halloween set. I ain't really want to go, but I ain't have shit else to do, so I said fuck it. I throw me together a little costume and whatnot, pre-game, so I'm feeling social by the time we get there and link up with my guy. We link up with a few more people and head to the Halloween kickback. Turns out the kickback was more like a shindig, and it was lit as fuck when we pulled up. I don't know whose spot it was, but they were obviously securing big bags. I stopped for a second just to take in the scene, because I was finding it kinda hard to believe I was really where I was. I felt like I was in heaven, and it just wasn't because there were literally sexy-ass angels walking by every few minutes, but that did intensify the feeling. Anyways, we slide inside, and the vibe was bananas. The DJ was killing it, the costumes were ridiculous, and everyone was having a lit-ass time. I'm not really one for huge social gathering, but it was definitely the type of gathering I'd rather attend if I had to. I refused to admit it to my guy, but I was glad he talked me into stepping into the spot. I took my time taking in the scene and processing everything so it didn't set my anxiety off. My pregame was just enough to get me in the building, and now I needed something strong enough to get me in the mood for some haunted hell yeah. It must have been written all over my face because my guy handed me something special and winked as he blended into the crowd. I didn't hesitate to down his gift and impatiently wait for its effects to kick in. It didn't take long for the real and not so real to blend together in euphoria. I was feeling like a motherfucking majestic unicorn galloping freely through a field of sexy. I was in another dimension and ready for whatever was coming my way. Abracadabra, I was feeling real magical, motherfucker. I floated around the room like the magical being that I was. It was a hunt for whatever was on my wavelength. I'm an open-minded freak that's attracted to a wide array of beings, and the special treat my guy gave me had me feeling even more uninhibited. What I'm trying to tell you is, I was down for whatever, and it was a whole lot of that in the building that night. Don't get me wrong, there definitely had to be some sort of connection for it to go down. It just didn't matter what form the being was that it was made with. I wasn't the only uninhibited motherfucker in the building that night. I sailed by several free spirits and other beings that I had a little fun with, but nothing close to closing the deal. My everything was super sensitive, which meant everything turned me on, and I was out to have as much fun as possible. I was trying to unwind, forget, and everything in between. I spotted her from across the room. It was as if everyone and everything around us disappeared. I looked up, and she was standing there with a mischievous glow. She had a magnetic energy that drew me to her. I glided into her presence and seductively stared into her eyes. I wasn't sure who was seducing who, but there was definitely a vibe between us. I wanted to devour her right then and there, but figured I should at least say hello before I did all that. I opened my mouth to get my greeting out the way, and she shoved her tongue down my throat before I could get a letter out. Our tongues tangoed while our bodies seemed to mesh into one. I don't know if it was the drugs or her vibe, but I felt like I was literally having an outer body experience. We finally untangled our tongues and stood there staring into each other's eyes. The mythical vampiress grabbed my hand and led me away from the crowd that wasn't there as far as I was concerned. We ended up in a moonlit bedroom bigger than my loft. We stood in front of the window and engaged in another tongue tango while my hands explored her frame. Her body was fucking amazing. She had ridiculous curves that seemed to mold into my hands. She lifted a leg, wrapped it around my waist, and locked me in place. I could feel the heated dampness of her sacred place through my costume's fabric. There was very little material to her costume, and apparently nothing underneath. I was ready to launch my invasion, but she was the show. She untangled our tongues and kissed her way down to my neck. I was in a complete state of ecstasy until I felt her chomp down on my neck in a not sexy way at all way. I opened my mouth to scream out in pain, but not even air escaped. I could hear her chuckling as she clamped down tighter on my neck. Turns out her costume was her wardrobe, and I was in a very fucked up situation. I would have written it off as being the effects of all the drugs flowing through my system, but the pain in my neck was very real. I felt myself getting lightheaded and was too lit to resist the urge to melt into the floor, so I surrendered and let myself glide back down to earth as she literally sucked the life out of me. The last thing I saw was her huge melons dangling as she straddled me to finish her meal.